final debate of the election campaign was certainly the most heated, with the two leaders clashing over tax, immigration and gender.
Yeah, now this comes in the midst of the recent betting controversy, which has seen Business and Trade Minister Kevin Hollinrake admit this morning that he's put a bet on the Conservatives to win the general election. Kevin joins us now from Westminster. Who knew that so many like to flutter? So you bet on the Conservatives winning the general election. Are you happy that you did that? Do you think that it's OK to do that? Or what do you make of the others who bet in different ways?
Well, I'm always optimistic, Kate, and I always felt that was possible. It was some months ago when I made that bet, and I still think it's possible today. We just need to keep fighting, and victory is always possible if you don't stop fighting. And what we see on the doorstep is markedly different from what we see in the polls. So I very much hope that people ultimately, when they're making the choice, when they get their ballot paper and they're putting that cross in the right box, they'll vote for Rishi Sunak over the next 5 years rather than resign themselves, surrender themselves to 5 years of Keir Starmer.
You've got the line, well, you've got the line. But where do you draw the line on betting? So you bet on the Conservative Party winning. You believe that can still happen despite the polls. But what's the difference in your view between that and having a flutter on something when you may have privileged information?
Well, I think you said it. If you are party to some information that other people don't have, then that is clearly wrong, and that's a breach of the rules as I understand it. And I think Rishi's been very clear on this. Anybody who's broken the rules will be kicked out of the Conservative Party, and that's why he suspended two fellow candidates, quite rightly. So that's the difference, I think. Whether we extend this in terms of a complete ban from politicians betting on politics, maybe that should be the case. Let's have a proper conversation about it.
This is a straightforward issue of not just a perception of right and wrong. You said in another programme, this situation has definitely opened up a debate that we should have a proper debate about and decide whether it's right or wrong that people have a bet on things they're involved with. You're the business, you're a minister in the Department of Business. You know, if you're trading, for example, you can't invest in those stocks. As a judge, for example, you know that if there's a perception of bias, even the basic perception, you have to remove yourself from the case. I have to ask you, do you know the difference between right and wrong? 5 people in your party have been suspended. I have to put it like this to you. What's wrong with you all?
I don't think that's very fair at all. It's not a breach of the rules, but I'm very happy to have a debate about it, and we can do that in the fullness of time. But what people want to talk about when I speak to them on the doorstep is not this, actually, not even when people have broken the rules. It's about the future. It's about the next 5 years. That's what people want to have a conversation about. And do they want to pay more tax under a Labour government, have more migration under a Labour government, or pay less tax and have less migration under a Conservative government? That's the debate that people really want to have. And for me, when we're so close to a general election, is the one we should be having.
OK, well, in the debate last night, Rishi Sunak repeated the line about Labour putting taxes up by £2,000. Now, we know, don't we, that £2,000 figure is firstly over 4 years, not per year, so it's already a different amount, and it's based on assumptions made by political advisors, not just members of civil servants who are impartial. So is this willful misleading to keep repeating that? And does it come from a place of desperation?
Well, it's not misleading at all, is it? Because you add up Labour's spending plans, there's £39.5 billion of spending plans that they've already set out, they have not funded. £39.5 billion, you divide it by that number of working households, and there's roughly 20 million working households. That's £2,000 per household. Yes, that's over 4 years, but that's the reality. That has to be funded. Now, Labour might choose to levy those taxes in a different way. Yes, that is true. But they haven't been clear.
Going to.
Well, they're going to, yes, but that's the point. They're going to raise it somehow. We don't know how, because they won't tell us. It could be council tax. It could be capital gains tax on somebody's home. It could be business taxes. We don't know. We just know that the spending is there, but the tax raising is not. And so we've been clear about this. It's important that Labour are clear about this. When you ask them those questions, whether it be migration or taxation, they have no clear answers.
Minister, as you're sitting here this morning, a couple of hours ago, junior doctors have walked out yet again. It's the 11th time right? People's lives are at risk. How is it that we're still seeing these junior doctors going out on strike? You've been in power, right, for a generation. You've had time to sort this out. Why are they still walking out? Some of them, right, are on £15 an hour. Would you take that? Perhaps you put a bet on it.
Well, the reason that this strike is continuing is because the junior doctors have an unreasonable demand in terms of the pay rise, 35%. I think that is unreasonable.
Has the government gone in, sat down and talked
you asked me a
about
question,
that?
Please, can I give you the answer, Kate?
Okay,
you asked me a question, please, can I give you the
enough.
answer? They've asked for 35% pay rise. Now, it's very easy for you or the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, to say you should have settled this dispute by now. At what level? We've already given them a 9% pay rise, and there was talk of another 3% on top of that. So what level would Labour have settled this?
Never mind
They're
the
always going to be
level,
funded
if that's
by taxpayers'
okay.
money.
Can I just ask you when the last time the government sat down with them to discuss it was?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I mean, I would urge any of my fellow ministers in government to sit down and negotiate, but only when there's a spirit of negotiation on both sides. And I think if it's an unreasonable demand, if these junior doctors or their union is simply saying 35% or nothing, where do you go from that? There has to be some negotiation. I'm sure there's a fair middle ground we can reach upon, and we've found that middle ground, of course, with nurses and some of the specialist doctors, consultants. We've found that middle ground.
I hear you. Can I ask you about your boss, Kemi Badenoch, who some people, you might, again, want to put money on this, might be the next leader of the Conservative Party. The actor's David Tennant had some words to say about your boss, suggesting she should shut up. The Prime Minister says David Tennant is a problem. Do you agree?
Well, I think it was a disgraceful comment. He didn't just say she shut up. He wished she didn't exist. I mean, we believe in free speech. We believe free speech in this country. As Ronald Reagan once said it, he said, if fascism ever returns to this country, he was talking about the US, it'll be in the name of liberalism. And I think David Tennant's comments were absolutely outrageous. The fact he is trying to shut down free speech. I have the greatest regard for Kemi Badenoch. She tackles some of the most serious issues we are having to deal with, is gender, for example, and she does it in a fair but direct manner and a clear manner. And yet, for the opposition, we see it time and time again. Keir Starmer can't even say what a woman is. A few weeks ago, he said 1 in 1,000 women had a penis. Now he's saying something completely different. We don't know where he stands on this. With Kemi Badenoch, you always know exactly where she stands.
And perhaps, what do you think? What are the chances? Do you think she's going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party? Do you really believe that Rishi Sunak's going to win the next election?
Yes, I think that's possible.
What are the odds? You know,
yes, I think that's possible. Well, I already have put a bit of a bet on a majority, as we talked about earlier. But I think the next leader for the Conservative Party is Rishi Sunak. I think he is fantastic. He's proven himself in the heat of battle. It's very easy to forget what's happened in the past about the support they provided, how he delivered for people through the COVID crisis, the cost of living crisis. But he did that. He did that. He's managed the economy in terms of inflation, in terms of getting the economy growing again. That would be 5 years under Rishi Sunak. Compare that to 5 years under Keir Starmer.
Well, we don't know what that'll be like, but Kevin Hollinrake, we're going to find out, aren't we, a week from today, what the country gambles on when they go to the polls. But good to speak to you this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.